Well, hello. It's Adaire Palmer here, and welcome to mytimetv.live. This is community TV with Adaire, and this is TV by me, TV for you, where we talk to ordinary people who are doing extraordinary things to add value and enhance the lives of people around them. This could be anything from yoga, gardening, a cooking class, healing, tarot card reading, anything that is something that you would be interested in, we're going to be covering it here. Today we are talking to the amazing Paula Darch, and Paula has just launched her very own TV program, her TV show on mytimetv.live. She's launched that this morning, and it was a very, very powerful program. I've watched what she said, and I really would love to. I've invited her back because she has a topic that I think that's relevant to everybody with children, and particularly with children who are labelled as autistic or ADHD or on the spectrum. So Sue-Ann, can see you're here. Hi, Sue-Ann. She's saying can't see you. I'm thinking that maybe the video might take a little while to kick in. Now she can see me. Yo, thank you for joining us, Sue-Ann. For those who don't know, she's my lovely sister, and she's a teacher and up in far north Queensland who will, it's not actually far north Queensland, but it's up that way in the boonies, and she's had some experiences with children who have been labelled and popped into a box that she might be able to make some comment about. We did say that Paula was going to do a reading for us, and what we're going to do is, if we have people on that would like that, we'll look towards doing that. Otherwise, Paula can come back another time and do a reading. I think today is really the topic of conversation I really would like to have is around Paula's broadcast this morning, which was around having her own experiences as a parent of a child who had been labelled and popped into a box. So welcome, Paula.
Thank you so much, Adaire, for having me once again. I really love being on this show with you and, sharing my knowledge. So again, thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. It's my pleasure, and I'm really happy to be working with you on this, because I think that what we've got here is a huge opportunity to bring information and bring value and enhance people's lives with things that will help them do things a little bit differently, and to be able to live their lives in a way that's a lot calmer and a lot more peaceful. Nice little segue into, can you do a little bit of a potted thing about what you said this morning? It was so powerful. Before I get you to do that, so we had a Facebook, and the page was actually unpublished. So Paula was wondering why there was not a lot of people on the page watching. It was because she went live to a page that wasn't published. So we want to celebrate what you've done, your launch of your live show, and we'll get the other what you did this morning. We'll get that circulated. But so if we get a bit of a potted history, we can direct people back to what you were talking about this morning. So
yeah, sure. So my live this morning was about my story, and I've labelled it, or I've given it the name, because I don't like labels, but I've given it the name "Parenting from Chaos to Freedom Within Your Own Mind," because short story. I have a beautiful boy. He will be 21 this year, but he was a child that had every single label thrown at him. And so what I realised 2 years ago, when we were going through some really significant things with him, was that I had actually labelled him myself. And so what was happening was, because I was constantly sort of like saying, it's the behaviour, it's the ADD, it's the visual processing, what I actually wasn't allowing was for him to actually go on his journey for what he was actually here for, what he is here for. So my message now, coming from a parent's perspective, but also an educator's perspective, I worked in the education department for 16 years with children, and my message to parents is that our children are not their labels. and that we really need to start looking at the children for who they are and allow them to be who they are, rather than the box that the society confinement has actually put them in. So yeah, that's sort of like, and I'm really passionate about this because I know that the understanding for myself to realize that my child is not the diagnosis, that he is just a beautiful, beautiful young man. I stopped treating him with a disable, or like with a disability or with a box to name, and I just started treating him and loving him for who he really is, and allowing the journey rather than me trying to control what I thought I was meant to.
I love that. I love that. What you said was loving them for who they really are.
Yeah.
And not trying to control them. I think I would like to have maybe a bit of discussion around, well, because I've got two nephews who have actually been formally diagnosed as on the spectrum.
Yes.
And I think I suspect that my dad might have been as well.
It's genetic.
Okay. Well,
yeah.
and of course, when he was growing up, he's passed now, but there was nothing that actually, if they were a little bit alternative to mainstream,
yes,
they tended to be ostracized instead of helped and engaged, to be helped on their terms.
Yes.
And I think one of my nephews lives here with me, and I think it's probably a good conversation to have. Oh, we've got Roy here. Hi, Roy. How are you doing? Good to see you. He's giving us some hearts. Thank you, Roy. Roy's co-host for the Net Friendly Movement's a lovely girl called April Roger, and she has a son who has non-verbal autism. So I guess there's a thing around, her. She was strongly driven to support parents with children who were in the same position as her. I think she found it was a little bit, which is pretty much what you're doing. So you're on a similar path. Have you guys connected?
No, I think we need to. Need to for sure.
It's the net friending movement. Roy, if you're still here, just pop the link in the comments. And we've got Linda here as well. Hey, Linda. There we go. So I think it's like having the diagnosis can, I think, so maybe be a relief. I'm only speaking from secondhand experience here, not firsthand. Yeah. But can we explore a little bit about how, if you have a diagnosis for your child, what that means, and then how that potentially means that we box them. So are you am I making myself clear?
Yeah, I completely understand, because this is very much what I I was always searching for answers, and so because I was searching for the answers for my son's quirkiness and behavior and this and that and everything else, I was constantly searching. But what I realized was that in my search, sort of everywhere I took him, they would give him another label. And it would be like, well, hang on a minute, what does that label mean? And they couldn't give me a description, or they couldn't then help me with that label. And it's like, so it was a never-ending search to kind of like go, okay, so you've given him this label, but what does that mean for me? What does that mean for him? How do I now help him with this diagnosis? And no one could ever say how to help. It was a label, and that's it. A label, and then another label. And so the diagnosis itself, whilst it was like, okay, that makes me feel somewhat better because the diagnosis made sense to my questioning mind of what's going on for this child, but it then still left me with more questions, because it was like, how do I help this child with this diagnosis? And that's what I found that I never got. I never got the, what does this mean? How do I help?
So how does that translate into practical applications of what you can do? Is that what
Yeah,
you're...
correct. Yeah, and what it came down to was me. How could I help myself so then I wasn't struggling emotionally with this child the way he was? And when I realized that I had to help myself and how to regulate my emotions, then it became, like somewhat easier because then I wasn't constantly searching for him because it came down to me.
Okay, so we've got Farhan Khan who said, take me live. He wants a link, or she wants a link. I'm not quite sure. Are you okay to have a conversation?
Yeah.
With somebody who would like to? Let's have a see. Let's have a look and see if I can do this, because I actually didn't put the link in the comments.
Yeah.
I just need to go onto the onto the... Bear with me. I need someone to drive this bus for me. Yeah. It's what you call, it's called being the producer, the director, the editor, the script
Yes.
writer, everything all at once. And it might take a little bit of, let's see. What would you have some comment while I'm doing this about what Sue-Ann said about the diagnosis can be, what did she say about limiting the diagnosis?
Well, the diagnosis, sort of when when anyone's diagnosed with anything, it puts them into that box of what they should be in that limitation. And sort of something that that came to me yesterday morning, and I've journaled it, and that is that when we have a child, society and all the books say the child should crawl by 6 months or 4 months or 6 months. It should be eating. It should be doing this. It should.
Yeah.
But what if the child's not ready to do that?
Yes.
What if the child is developing at its own stage? So why should we then put the pressure on the child to be a certain way if it's not ready to do that? At school, they say that children, we teach them to read at 5, and if they're not reading by 6, then there's something wrong. Well, what about if they're just not ready to do that? Does that make it that there's something wrong with the child, or the fact that developmentally they're not actually ready for it? And so I think this is the same as the diagnosis. The diagnosis puts them into the limitation of the box of what they can and can't do. So we as educators then feel that we have to then stay in that box of limitation. And as parents, we feel that that's what we have to do as well, because society says, well, this is the diagnosis. This is basically what the limitation of that child can now do. So we kind of then become that limitation for that child.
Well, I think, and it's all, I'm just thinking about on the broader education system, everything is geared up for that normal. And what they call it, if you fall within a bell curve type thing, and if you fall outside of that.
But what's normal?
Exactly.
What's normal? And this is my biggest thing is, sort of we as parents and educators need to listen to our instinct of what is it that this child needs. And, unfortunately, in an education system, teachers don't now have that time to then be able to give to every single student, because there's so much time restraint around, what needs to be taught by this time. But some kids just don't, some kids aren't ready for that. Some kids aren't,
Oh, sorry, I was going to say, so just adapting to small, like, I mean, we're getting a bit broad with the conversation, which is fine.
Yeah.
My son, as he's been not diagnosed, but I would suggest that there's nothing wrong with him. You know my son quite well. He's been to you for healing. And he sometimes feels like he's out of step with society and the world, but he's had some issues at school, which is he's dropped off in last year. We've got him back on track for this year, which is fantastic, but he's been treated like in in the box, and this is maybe more of a broader parenting thing, not a parenting issue for a parent who's been diagnosed on the spectrum or with ADHD, but I know I felt terribly guilty when they were saying he's got to come and do his choose his subjects. And I'm saying, well, I can't get him to school, let alone choosing his subjects. And they were so fixated on getting him to choose his subjects because they had 1,500 kids that they had to get to choose their subjects for next year. If there was one kid that was out of step, they couldn't cope with it.
Exactly. But what about if that child just wasn't ready? You know, we're forcing them into something that they're just not ready for.
Yes. So I just want to say, Farhan has said they want to say something about the topic. I don't know whether we're talking to a male or female, Farhan, but you are welcome to join us. If you click on the link above, I've just popped the guest link in the show. So we're using Be Live TV, which means we can have 3 people on the screen and up to 10 in the lobby. So you're welcome to come in as a guest and just have a look. Would love to hear what you have to say, Farhan. So please click on the link above and that will, I'll just double check that it's gone in there. Linda is saying, absolutely, children do their own thing, their way, in their time. And I think that we are so hell-bent on herding them like cattle.
Yes.
Through different hoops. I guess it creates a huge dilemma for parents and for educators, doesn't it?
It does. You know, sort of, because there's that constant feeling that, you know, we haven't done enough, or that constant feeling of, you know, society says that our child has to crawl by 6 months old. And so then we start to fear what we've done wrong. We start to worry. We start to bring all of that, you know, that fear into our lives of, oh, crap, our child's not this, you know, it's not doing what it should be. Well, who says who says that it's not? Like, you know, some children just need that little bit longer to be able to build up their muscle strength, or, you know, whatever that may be. You know, it doesn't mean that there's something wrong with the child. But the biggest message I have, and that is for parents to listen to the instinct they have about their children, not about what society says that their children should do or shouldn't do. Listen to what you as an instinctual mother, father, need to do for your child. Because we know our kids more than anything. But society says they've got to do this certain thing by this age, or it puts so much pressure on us that we then go, we must be failing. Well, we're not.
We're not, and neither are the children. I think the guilt and that we feel, and this is Linda saying, Suan's just saying the problem is that they employ untrained TA. I'm assuming that's teachers' assistants to cater for these children. I don't know if that's true or not, but Suan, in her experience as a teacher, is saying yes, and they can make it worse. And Linda is saying popular culture compounds this challenge as well. And it is about, like, how many years have we been talking about embracing diversity?
Yes.
And yet there's still these practices that label people and pop them in boxes, and, you know, and children, as we're talking about today, and leave the parents and the teachers or the TAs who are untrained. Because, look, I don't know, do you have any stats? I know this is probably a little bit outside, but do you know what percentage of the population are actually diagnosed as on the spectrum?
I don't know, but I know that it's getting bigger. And I think that, you know, sort of the diagnosis is becoming bigger because there is a lack of understanding of, you know, of the kids themselves. So, you know, sort of, because it's easier to put a kid in a box and to diagnose a child with ADD for, you know, behavioural problems, than to actually take responsibility or to take acknowledgement what's actually going on the underlying of the child.
Yeah.
The child may, be just struggling, with being here, it's just there's so many underlying things, but there's just that let's give the kid a label and let's put them in a box that they're not then able to be like to learn the way they are and what have you. And let's face it, kids misbehave.
Yeah.
Yes. Kids misbehave. And do we like it? No, we don't. I mean, for Pete's sakes, who likes it when their kid, goes off the warpath like mine did? Do you know what I mean? But, it's about, yeah, exactly, Suzanne. Let them go, let it go, because let them go to be who they are rather than put them in a box of society's, who they think they're meant to be.
Yeah. Yeah. So embracing them for exactly who they are. Do you think that when we don't do that, when we want them to be how we want them to be so we can cope with it, that
Yes.
it's a reflection on us?
Yes.
Because I know
we don't have control of ourselves.
Mm.
And so our children are just trying to kind of go, hey, you need to take control. But you need to take control of your actual self and your own emotions. Home lives are a big part. Oh, my God, they're a massive part. But it comes down to how the mum and dad are behaving. If a mum or a dad have tapped out to themselves emotionally, the children will just want to get their attention of their mum and dad, their emotional attention. They don't care how they get it. So they will be defiant, they will be, all of this sort of stuff, because if a parent is tapped out of emotional regulation, and this comes down to, sort of parents with, sort of low self-esteem, confidence issues, and all that sort of stuff. Suzanne, you're right. It needs to come down to the mums and the dads. We have to take responsibility of our own emotional regulation. And if we're tapped out, well, how are the kids going to behave?
Well, that's right. And I think Linda's also saying the institution can't adapt to meet the needs of the kids we have coming through now. It's time to ditch it altogether. This is going to be really, really an interesting conversation, and I'm so happy to be part of it. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but you've got the home life thing happening on this side here, but Linda was saying it's the institution, and we found this with Darty, as the institution isn't able to keep up with where he's at. And that's when they start to do things, I think, like make the, can be troublesome. I think Darty's got a reasonably good home life with semi-stable parents. I'd like to think semi-stable parents who have tried to equip him with the skills that he needs to go forward in life, but he'll still play up.
Kids do.
And then you got to go, right, well, that's just kids playing up, or just teenagers. So I think that the institutions, there's a separate, absolutely, it's another conversation that I think is really interwoven with what you're saying, Paula, is the conversations around the home life that we have around the health professionals who diagnose these children and put them in boxes, and then as the institutions, how they all interlock and interweave together, because it's something we can't unpack in half an hour. But I believe, as Suanne's saying, in some cases I'm saying over-diagnosing.
Lost her.
Hello? Can you hear me?
I can hear you, can't see you.
I can see that, and I have good. I'm just going to make a comment that I'm going to refresh. Actually, no, I'm going to refresh my screen. Don't go anywhere. Paula, if you need to reconnect your camera, do that. People who are free, we've had a bug. We're going to unbug.
We've got a bug, people.
Okay, can you hear me? Hello, I'm back.
Oh, we're back.
We're back. Yep, you're back here. I don't think you left. I think it was just me.
Yep.
So I think we're nearly out of time. We didn't have who was it that was wanting to join that had something to say. That would have been good if they could have jumped in. Farhan, that would have been lovely. Maybe Farhan, if you connect through the messenger here, we can talk to you about having a conversation with Paula, because Paula is going live every week on mytimetv.live about this very topic.
Yeah.
So do you want to share a little bit about what your plans are for this? Because it's really exciting, really exciting.
Yeah, sure. So my lives are really about my biggest message to parents, and that is to, number one, listen to your gut instinct and start to actually go with that rather than what you feel that everyone else on the outside wants you to go with. And then helping people to start to understand that where their emotions are. So this is where interaction with people is going to be really good, because what I want to be doing is actually helping people with, supporting them through their emotions. How are they feeling about parenting? What do they, how do they need support? Because I know for myself, with a child that, as I said, has, got so many diagnoses, and, going from that chaos of, oh my God, what do I do next, to now kind of going, do you know what? He is what he is, and my 10-year-old's the same. They are what they are. They're going to learn the way they are. But to, really understand that the grief that we start going through. So, and they're the phases that I really want to talk about, and how many phases of grief there actually are. Because we are grieving for our children, even though they're still physically here.
That's a really powerful concept as well, because we were, as you said this morning, in your first live broadcast about this, you were saying that we have an idea in our mind, or a picture about how we think our children should be and how they should grow up and what paths they should take. And when they don't do that, we see it as that triggers feelings of grief and
grief, loss, feeling like we've failed. One of the biggest things I used to say to my husband is, what have I done wrong? What have I done wrong as a mum? Why is he like this? Why is he, doing this? And it boiled down to one thing: it was his choice.
Yeah.
He was choosing to behave the way he was choosing to behave. He was choosing to go down the track that he was. So it's really about getting people, and yes, educators. I really would love to, speak to, education and, the systems of the education, and say, look, stop putting limitations on these kids. Let them discover the way they need to discover, rather than kind of put them in the box of what you think they're meant to be because of this great big definition. Oh, this child's ADHD, so they can't do this. No, they can do it. They need to be supported to do it.
Yeah. I think go on.
And how do they do that? By teaching them what emotions are.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you've got a huge. We're out of time, Paula, but you've got
Yes.
you. I think you're opening a can of worms, which is brilliant. It's a can of worms that needs to be opened.
Yeah.
I want to support you as much as I possibly can because I think what you've
Thank
got to
you.
offer, the
Yeah.
way that there's some light at the end of the tunnel for parents who are perhaps struggling with this and blaming themselves and feeling guilty and grief about the whole thing. Sue's saying also don't let them be responsible for their own actions and
Yes.
behaviours. Don't smother them. Yes.
Yes.
I think you two can connect and have some conversations. I think that the tree, what do they call it? You triage them with the
Yeah.
parent who help the professional who can do the diagnosis and the education system. I think
Yeah.
it's long overdue, these conversations, and I think what you're doing is absolutely immensely valuable. And I would
Thank you.
suggest, I know your focus is on people or parents who have children who have been diagnosed and have the limitations placed upon them, but I also found like I said, when we were going through some issues with Darch, and you had helped us immensely with that, in terms of helping him and helping us understand what he was going through. So thank you. Very grateful for that. And
You're welcome.
also, because I don't think there's a diagnosis to be had for him, but there
No.
are parents out there who have children who are who maybe just need a bit more understanding and a bit more support. And if the
Yeah.
parents can get an idea of how to approach that
Yeah.
in a way that's loving for everybody,
Yeah.
you've got a fan. You're awesome.
Thanks, Stephen.
There you
Sue Ann.
go.
Thank you, Sue
Love
Ann.
you long time, she's saying. Love you long time.
Yeah.
I
Look,
think, go on.
it is really about supporting all children, not just children with disability and the parents of disability, because it's about helping parents to understand that there is support out there,
Yeah.
and it needs to start somewhere, and it needs to then be filtered through.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Thank you so much, Paula. I really appreciate your time today.
You're
Where
welcome.
can people find you? I know you're going regularly live on mytimetv.live because this is all about community and helping people. You also have your own page, which you'll be also streaming live too. We've got some cross-posting happening, so it'll be on both pages.
Yes. Yeah,
So,
so Dynamics Mind and Body Connection is my business page, and through that page, this year I'm really going to start pushing my message about parents, pushing my message about, that we need to start working on ourselves as parents, because when we work on ourselves as parents, then it then works with the children. So it starts with us. Starts with us.
absolutely. It absolutely starts with us.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
that's brilliant. I love your message. I'll get you to pop the link to your business page down below when we hop
Yeah.
off this podcast. Thank you so much. Just when are you live again? So just give us a time and day. Is it
So my plan is to go live at 10 a.m. on a Wednesday morning. I know that a lot of people are working that time, so I'm just trying to work out time-wise and things like that at the moment. Sort of whether to go in the morning or whether to go later in the afternoon. I may play with times at the moment just to see, where I can get some interaction and everything, because these posts are for people to ask questions. It's time for people to, stand up and be responsible for themselves. And that's what I want to be here for with this program.
Beautiful. All right. Well, we'll do some more work in Code Breakers about formulating some strategies for this. I love it. I love it how it all comes together. Thank you again, Paula. I really appreciate you. And I will see you. I'll see you in Code Breakers.
Yeah,
and I'll see you back at my time too.
Excellent. Thank you. Bye.
Bye. So that was the lovely Paula Darch from Dynamics Mind and Body Connection. Thank you so much for joining us for mytimetv.live. This is Community TV with Adaire. We are live every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Australian Central Daylight Time, talking about all things community, things that are going to help and enhance and add value to the lives of you and people around you. So if you would like me to talk about something specific, or if you would like a particular guest or a industry on the show, I'd love to get some yoga instructors, some people do meditating, some gardening and cooking, whatever it is. We'll be bringing it to you over the next 12 months, and we'll also have excellent other presenters with their own shows, like Paula, being live regularly on mytimetv.live. All the best. We'll see you next week. Bye for now.